Coming up next on Art Rocks, the creative drive behind New Orleans City Park's Sculpture Garden.
A user-friendly outdoor museum of art.
An artist who dances with molten glass.
You learn about the material, the more you work with it, and you start to develop questions of your own.
A painter who translates love for countryside into unforgettable canvases.
There's feeling in almost every atmospheric condition, every sunlit, every shadow.
And a young artist competition that shines a light on the best of the best.
You start with talent, you start with this deeply ingrained talent and love of the music. And those are the two things that sort of drive you throughout a long life in music.
That's all next on Art Rocks.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello, I'm James Fox Smith, publisher of Country Roads magazine, and this is Art Rocks. The Sydney and Walda Besthoff Sculpture Garden in New Orleans is one of the city's most popular attractions for tourists and locals alike. Occupying 5 acres of ground surrounding the New Orleans Museum of Art, the garden invites visitors to experience more than $25 million worth of exciting and sometimes challenging 3D artwork.
Steel makes this garden grow, as well as bronze, copper, and granite. Welcome to the latest attraction to invade New Orleans, the Sydney and Walda Besthoff Sculpture Garden.
So this is a user-friendly outdoor museum of art? It is. I think that's a very good term, a user-friendly outdoor museum of art.
K&B drugstore magnate Sydney Besthoff and wife Walda began collecting sculptures in the mid-70s for the corporate headquarters plaza located at Lee Circle.
It had one sculpture on the plaza, a big Isamu Noguchi fountain, which wasn't working, and I thought it would be nice, A, to get the fountain working, and B, to put up a few other pieces to keep it company. And that started me off.
The collection grew to 40, but the statues needed a new home after the family-owned retail drugstore chain sold their 184-location empire in 1997. Besthoff, the New Orleans Museum of Art, and City Park teamed up to create this 5-acre park adjacent to NOMA.
And the sculptures themselves are world class, and by themselves they would look great, but in this setting the sculptures look great, they complement the landscaping, so the whole thing is greater than the sum of its parts.
This is the oak garden side, and this is basically the contemporary side of the garden, the newer pieces done by relatively contemporary artists who are still alive. Whereas on the other side of the lagoon is the more traditional architecture, and 1 or 2 of the pieces the museum has had for many years, including the Bordel Archer, which was sitting out in front of the museum for maybe 25 years. We have on the other side of the open area here a horse done out of detritus, flotsam and jetsam from the Missouri River, collected by a artist who then put it together and cast it in bronze.
It's beautiful.
Fun for the kids to climb.
How about the spider too? Kids climb that?
I've seen kids try, but it's a little hard.
The spider is a big favorite, and it really looks like it just dropped down out of the oak tree and is walking across the lawn. In fact, I tell the kids the 4 male nudes that are in the distance are running away from the spider. The kids and adults too are fascinated by the monkeys by Rhonda Pandey, because from a distance they look like this group of writhing stainless steel silver monkeys, and then when you get up you see that the artist has actually switched some of the arms and faces of the monkeys with her own body parts. So it looks like perhaps a genetic experiment gone awry. I've gone by and seen little girls sitting in the lap of the seagull sculptures, and one of the great things is people are taking lots of photographs of the sculptures in the garden, but also of their children and themselves. And I love the idea of ending up in people's family albums. Or now I guess people don't have albums, you're in their computer base.
There was really nothing here before. It was just pretty much wilderness, and we were very careful during construction of the garden to save the trees. So far, everything was worked out well. You're commenting on the necklaces here, which could be left over from a Mardi Gras parade. However, they weigh 200 to 300 pounds apiece, and the tree is supporting them very well, and they are, I think, unique contribution of Mardi Gras to the sculpture garden.
John, tell me about this sculpture over
here. The big tall sculpture, that's by Kenneth Snelson, a great American sculptor, engineer, and it's made up of stainless steel poles that are held in place in tension with stainless steel cable. So actually, in a hurricane, the wind would just pass right through it. We wouldn't have to worry about that. That was a piece that was actually commissioned about 20 years ago by Mr. Besthoff for his corporate headquarters at Lee Circle. It's called the Verlaine Tower, and Verlaine was the name of his first foundation, and it was a name made up of the initials or parts of the names of his three daughters, Jane, Valerie, and Virginia.
We hoped that it would invite people who would not ordinarily visit a museum to come walk through the sculpture garden and then eventually go to the museum as well.
You can touch the sculptures, but there's a variety here. So if you don't like this particular piece, wait till around the bend, there's one that you will really respond to.
I'd previously collected paintings, mostly photorealist paintings, but when we started doing the sculpture on the plaza, I knew immediately that that was a good way to go, and I had no idea many years ago that this would turn out this well.
The New Orleans Museum of Art estimates that about 100,000 people a year visit the sculpture garden. Many return time after time. No matter where you live in Louisiana, opportunities to connect with the arts are everywhere, if only you know where to look. So here's a list of some cool adventures in art, music, and the festivals coming up around the state. To learn more about these and other events in Louisiana, visit lpb.org/artrocks or pick up a free copy of Country Roads magazine. LPB's Art Rocks website also features an archive of previous episodes, so to see any segment again, just log on to lpb.org. Cleveland, Ohio glassblower Mark Sudduth admits that he's not much of a dancer. And yet, he describes the process of creating his monumental glass sculptures as being a bit like dance. Hot, steamy dance. We caught up with Sudduth at his studio and followed him into the fire.
The process of blowing glass has always interested me. I liken it a little bit to a dance. Moving with the pipe or with a partner, in the sense that that hot glass comes out of the furnace. It's interesting that you blow a piece and shape a piece from beginning to end without ever really touching it with your hands. We use jacks, which are a tong-shaped thing for squeezing down the neck, shaping the piece. I use a wooden paddle made out of a fruit wood, usually apple or cherry or something. The fruit woods are absorbent of water, but they're also hard enough that they don't burn up real quick. So soak that fruit wood in water, paddle the shape, move the molten glass around. I also use some shears, a diamond shear and a straight shear, to do particular cutting techniques or something during the blowing glass. The Marver table is a steel table that we roll the glass on. It's used for shaping and also for cooling. Blowpipe, of course, steel tube or stainless steel tube with a mouthpiece on one end and a head on the other end, goes into the furnace, gathers the molten glass out that it's shaped on. So it's about a 5-foot stainless steel pipe. And also punny rods, which are the puntil or the punny, which is the rod that we transfer the piece to once we've blown the piece. So it's transferred to finish the top of the piece. We use gravity, we use centrifugal force, we use tools to impact the glass, but we don't really touch it with our hands. Glass is basically 70% silica sand, soda ash, and lime. Those are the three major glass formers. You put those together and add heat, you would get some sort of a glass. When you blow in the blowpipe, you're expanding the piece. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. Some people think it must be really hard to blow. Well, it's only hard to blow if the glass is cold. If the glass is hot and molten, it moves very easily, so it doesn't take much effort to blow it. There are times when you blow a piece out colder. There are times when you blow a piece out super hot, depending on what result you want in the end. So, and then people are always afraid that, oh my, you don't want to suck on that blowpipe. Well, it doesn't do anything. It just flattens the piece. So it's not like you get your lungs burned or anything. It's a pretty safe process. The key to blowing glass, for one thing, because there's a lot of technical aspect to it, is it takes time and effort in practice. There is the hand-eye coordination that's turning the pipe and keeping it on center. There is the knowing how hot it is, and you take visual cues, you take physical cues from the rotation of the pipe and how that glass is reacting on the end. You know when it's really hot, it's moving quick and it takes quick hand movements. When it's moving slower, it's a little slower and more deliberate. You can also see that in how much it flops around. You can see it in the color of the glass. When it's hot, it's more orange. As it cools down, that goes away. So it takes all of those physical and mental attributes to blow glass, and you couple that with lots of experience. You don't set out in a year to start blowing like maybe a goblet we could consider as more sophisticated. So you don't do that right off the bat when you're blowing glass. It takes a while. Once those skills are developed, making the same bowl or whatever over and over again can be boring. So I think it's natural for the artist to kind of question things. You learn about the material, the more you work with it, and you start to develop questions of your own that you want to ask the material. What can I do or what can I not do to the material? How far can I push it? And the artist is kind of maybe moving out to the edge a little bit, trying to experience all they can, seeing what the material offers back to them. So yeah, I blow these big pieces and then I cut them up with a big diamond saw. I grind and polish them by hand. I engrave them. I do a lot of looking at glass and that shiny quality surface, doing some sort of articulation on that surface to draw attention to it. This nice concentric form that's this big around, and you slice off the side and all of a sudden maybe that impresses that circle a little bit more or makes more of a point of it. So my embellishments on the material aren't necessarily decorative as much as they're pointing out an aspect of the piece. I think they can be decorative too, and they are to some level, but they are not only decorative. I'm looking for something that can have a response. People can look at it and have some feeling over it, not maybe more than, oh, that's pretty or that's beautiful. Of course, I don't mind something like that, but I think it needs to invoke a little bit more than that from someone.
If you want to see more, check out sudduthglass.com. Now, how about we meet Julie Wiegand, an artist living in rural Missouri. She says that setting is an important source of inspiration. Using vibrant colors to capture the very qualities of the light, Wiegand translates the beauty of her surroundings into her work on canvas. Take a look.
There are places in the world that invite us to travel even deeper into the heart of them, to places that rivers and trails can't take us, but artists can. They ply their tools with skills that show us the world as if we were seeing it for the first time, in ways that can amaze us and move us. And so artists inspire us, and in turn, they seek inspiration from the world around them. Many of them find that inspiration amidst the beauty of Missouri River country.
So I live in this amazing one-room schoolhouse in Berger, Missouri. 15 acres of prairie land. This place is, kind of magic, like many areas of Missouri can be, because I know of other areas that are like this. It's like a pocket of amazing people, many artists. I mean, Herman alone is the most amazing town just in its development. And then New Haven, we have two. We have, we're like sandwiched between two rather amazing small towns. Sometimes I'll do paintings of my view to the east in the early morning with the distant ridges often in blue and violets and all these amazing with the mist, I actually like the humidity even because it just gives atmosphere. It truly is atmosphere. And I've always been a nature girl. I've always loved creatures and sky and water. And so I'm in it. So being here, rather than being in a city, is just I'm in it all the time. So every minute of every day is an opportunity to either just appreciate it or then to want to paint it. There's feeling in almost every atmospheric condition, every sunlit, every shadow. I actually will just wake up during the night and look out the window and get to see the moon rise. And so the feeling behind that might be something I will try to paint during the next day. To get to a place where you can put feeling into your paintings has probably been my goal for the last 40 years. I am never bored because really there's never the same day. It's what makes it very special, is there really is no sameness about it.
Speaking of beautiful places, Alexandria's Kent Plantation House definitely qualifies. The Antebellum Home, oldest standing structure in central Louisiana, is the focus of this week's Louisiana Treasures segment.
The home is over 200 years old. It was built back in 1800. It is in a French Creole style for the original part of the home, which is the original 6 rooms that Pierre Bailly II built. Well, the home was built up for a few different reasons at the time. They did have levees on the bayous and the river, but not quite to the extent that we have like our locks and dam systems today. So they had the home built up to keep the floodwaters from getting inside the house. It also helped with mosquitoes swarming. They don't swarm 14, 15 feet in the air. And it also helped by having it built up higher, that any breeze was caught underneath, and it tended to help to keep the home cool. Another way they kept the house cool was by having their doors and windows right across from each other. So the home, you have one room, and then on either side of the room you have a door and a couple of windows that are directly across. So it helps to have that cross breeze that goes through the home. And then the second owner, Mr. Robert Henson, added on 2 rooms of the home in the 1840s in a Greek revival style. The 2 rooms on the very end, the 2 little veranda looking places there on either end of the front porch, are the rooms that were added on. So the original part is basically where the porch is in the back. There are some very interesting pieces in the house that we have not had anyone say they've seen in any other plantation home. From our sewing desk to one of our settees that we have in the parlor. There are only 2 of our outbuildings that are original to the property that we know of. That would be the milk house and the carriage house. Though the rest of our buildings came from other local plantations that unfortunately no longer exist, from specifically the Augusta Bayou side and the Eden plantation, which were really not that far away. Now, the sugar mill is actually a reproduction building, as well as our blacksmith shop. These were rebuilt because we depict before the Civil War here at Kent House, and during the war, these particular structures were destroyed systematically to keep plantations from being able to operate and to get at their iron deposits.
Pianist Lara Downes wanted to create a program that would give young artists a platform on which to develop the skills and experience to become great performers. With the help of the Mondavi Center for the Performing Arts in Davis, California, she created a competition especially for young artists. Let's listen.
Being a musician is a couple of things. Obviously, you start with talent. You start with this deeply ingrained talent and love of the music. And those are the 2 things that sort of drive you throughout a long life in music, hopefully. I mean, I'm a classically trained pianist. And my training was very immersive. I think that at the core of everything that I do and of all of my experience throughout my training and throughout my career is the central fact that we have a limited audience for this music. And so you can address that in a lot of different ways, and I choose to address that both in how I present my music and how I speak about my music and how I teach about my music, just sort of reaching out about the music to audiences, to listeners, to young people, and building audiences to nurturing the next generation, both of musicians and of listeners.
I want to thank all of the young musicians who entered the competition this year, those who are here today and those who are not, those who are around the country.
The Mondavi Center Young Artist Competition is a national program for young musicians ages 12 to 22. And it's a 3-step process. We have first preliminary auditions, which are recorded, submissions in the fall. And then we travel around the country and hear semi-finalists who pass that first round in major cities all around the country. This year we went to Los Angeles, New York, Cleveland, and here in Davis. This is the 8th year for the competition. It's really fabulous to see the kids grow. I sit there in the audition room and it just, oh my gosh, I'm just thrown back to my own days, doing auditions and competitions, and aware that it's such a hard thing, to go into a room and you've got 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to show everything you can do. It's a lot of pressure to be developing a sense of who they are as musicians, because we're not all the same. We each need to find our own voice and our own strengths and develop those. So from then on, it's just been growing steadily year by year, and went from a very small local thing to something that's now a national program, and is really having a wide reach and I think a deep impact, which is so gratifying. But I think we've identified what's unique about the program and where our strengths are, and we're seeing the impacts that we're able to make. We're hearing, every year I say, oh, the level this year is
is even better. And then I hear myself say it, I said, well, I said that last year too, but in fact, you know, the visibility of the program is increasing, and so we're just hearing such talented kids. It's just exciting. I think where music competitions can fail is in not having follow through. So one of the main goals and one of the central points to the vision of the Mondavi Center competition is follow through, and really continuing to serve as a support and a touchstone for the young people who come through here. I think that this is one of the most important and formative experiences that young musicians have to perform in a world-class venue, because, you know, again, you practice and you practice, and then when you have the best case scenario, when you have a room with fabulous acoustics, and not only that, you get to, you know, look out and it's beautiful, and you're under the lights, and you get to realize the full extent of your potential. I think it's a very hopeful future. I really do. When I see what they're doing, when I see how talented they are, but also maybe the perspective that they have into this life and what they want to do with it, I think it's a really hopeful future.
And that'll do it for this edition of Art Rocks. But remember, you can always catch episodes of the show at lpb.org/artrocks. And while we're at it, Country Roads magazine is a great place to find out what's going on in the arts all across the state. So until next week, I've been James Fox-Smith, and thanks for watching.